Oh, the clock went at the same time. Welcome to the live stream. That means we started on time tonight. Please, first of all, let me know in the chat if I have double audio because I had an echo for like the first 5 minutes of the stream last week. So welcome. It's exciting to have you here. We are back to talking about economics topics. No planners, no figure skating drama. Which, by the way, I streamed about figure skating drama on Tuesday last week, and it only got more and more complicated throughout the week. So I'm just saying it was a ripe week for figure skating drama. But what we're going to talk about today is the Chinese property crisis, which has been ongoing. I've done some previous streams on it, talking about the bankruptcy of Evergrande, which is the second largest, or was the second largest property developer in China. And it is the most indebted property developer in the world. So that bankruptcy happened in 2021, and they have been in essentially a debt refinancing kind of plan for the past couple years, past 2 and change years. And last week on January 29th, a court told Evergrande, like a Hong Kong court though, which is important and we'll come back to that. But a court said, enough is enough. Like literally the judge said, enough is enough. Y'all, you are not doing a very good job of figuring out how to pay back your creditors and restructure your debt. And it's time to wind up. There's still a bit of an out. But I think, hello, hi, there we go. Now we've got our scheduled Machka arrival here. She's not on my shoulders yet, though. I've noticed it's been one shoulder per live stream. That is not for you. No donuts for kittens. So what we are going to do is we are going to talk about why Evergrande is important. I think it's very easy to think it's not important if you are not invested in the Chinese property market, but it is very much a bellwether for situations, for the general property developer situation in China, which is an over-leveraged sector. And a lot of the same warning signs that were happening for Evergrande are happening for Country Garden, which is the largest property developer in China. And why should you care about a property developer in China? Well, because China is going through a bit of a recession right now, and China is responsible for about 30% of global GDP growth. I guess it wouldn't be GDP, but global growth year over year. So China is the second largest economy in the world, and their property market is about a quarter of their overall economy. And so what happens to Evergrande matters to you because there's trickle out effects. A lot of people have compared, I can hear the other cat purring from like 10 feet away. I really wish we had a cat cam to show you because she is being dramatically cute. I have a cat on my lap though. That's why my hand is just doing weird things on the camera. Okay, calm down. No going up there. Yeah, it matters. Oh, okay. I see that there is a kitten cam. I think Machka is getting jealous on my lap that Kugel is on the screen. I wish we had a mic to show just how great the purrs are. Calm down, Machka. You could just sit. It's not that hard. You could just sit. Oh, this is very good cat cam. All right, well, I'm going to read the chat while you all watch the cat. No double audio. You are good. Great. Thank you. Hello, folks. It's great to have you here. No planners. Bummer. Well, we might be back to planners next week. This is a very busy month at work for me, so we'll see how much I can handle. Oh, my dollar should be the response at the grocery store. I mean, that's pretty good. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram and you look at my stories, I reposted a Sesame Street video where Elmo is checking out at the grocery store and the total comes to $1 bazillion. And Elmo was like, I have a T-Rex, I have a Go Fish card and a T-Rex toy. And I feel like that's how I feel the grocery store these days. Are they the ones that own the tower in LA? I do not believe they own any American properties whatsoever. But a lot of Americans do own pieces of Evergrande, which is why it is important because a lot of global investors are invested in the Chinese property market as kind of a way of getting into China. And so, yeah. Evergrande, not to be mistaken for Ever Given. Funny that prefix keeps showing up in different disasters. Yeah, exactly. Not big boat stuck, big tower not finished. Make the donuts, taste the donuts. Oh yeah, we should probably show off the donut that the kittens have made. Now we can really start the show. Yeah, look at the little purr machine. Feline shoulder vaulting should be the next big exhibition sport for Paris 2024. We should have ski ballet again and feline pole vaulting. Yes, can't go to work today because there's a cat on my lap. All right, I feel like we shouldn't force Aaron to continue to hold up the cat cam. So I'm going to show you this donut. If I can manage to make my overhead camera work. Okay. Here's the donut. I'm sorry. Once again, I tried very hard to make it look pretty, but it flipped over in transport. But I think it's still going to taste good. So it's a pistachio bombolini. I think that's how you pronounce it. We've definitely had a bombolini before, or however you pronounce it. It's an Italian donut. I might be making up the pronunciation. Bombolini. I think it's a bombolini. So anyway, it's an Italian donut that's rolled in sugar, but this one is pistachio flavored. So it's got fresh pistachio cream, and then it's got some like sugar glaze on it. I'm pretty sure I've had one of them before, but I don't think it was pistachio flavored. And yes, we could go look at the database, but we're not going to. The cat is back, just in case anybody was wondering. Oh my God, I have a cat melting in my lap. She's being very dramatic. Okay. Hello from Safeway. Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies for what you were about to experience at checkout. Graffiti Towers is owned by Oceanwide Holdings. I do not know about the Graffiti Towers. Should I know about them? And the beauty shot. I'm sure the bombolini tastes fantastic. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out what the rating is. Okay, hi, princess. The cat is, I really wish that I could zoom out and show you the dramaticness of the cat that is happening here. She's being very dramatic. She wants continuous attention. I would like to note, she only needs to work at the donut shop 1 hour a week, but neither of the kittens are currently on duty at the donut shop. Oh, are you going to try to show what's behind the camera here? Aaron's trying to shame me while also showing the cat, but this is my cat right here. Look at the kitten. Look at her. She's very cute. Okay. All right. Back to talking about the property market. So there's a couple basics that you need to know. And the basics are not so basic if you aren't familiar with the Chinese property market, because the way that people buy apartments in China is very different than what happens in most Western countries. So when people essentially pre-buy their apartments before they're built, which does happen in the US sometimes in like new developments, but that's pretty much all it's pretty much all investment in China is if you want to buy a apartment, you and a home for your family as an investment, you would buy one that's pre-built. And then these property developers go and they take the all of the money that has been put down, sometimes which is the entire cost of the apartment, been put down by these people. They take it to local governments in China who then sell or lease them the land. And often local governments will rezone land for residential to make it more valuable. Those governments will then so the property developers will be like, hey, I've got all this money from these people, and that money I can use it to buy this land. Then they start building using the money that they get from other people for a different property for pre-buying to actually do construction. And the local governments use the money that they get for leasing or selling land to property developers to service their own debt on municipal bonds for doing all of the kind of rapid infrastructure expansion that we see. I think that China is it's very famed in the world for how quickly infrastructure can go up. When a command economy wants something, it can get it, right? So trains, roads, sewer, all of the infrastructure that it takes to put together a city, that in China generally comes from local governments doing financing by selling bonds. And the collateral on the bonds is the leases that these property developers give them. Does it sound a little bit like a house of cards where you need people to continue pre-buying properties in order for this to work? Yes. And when those property developers need to build stuff, they go out and they get financing. Some of this financing is domestic and a lot of it is international. And so those property developers that go out and get financing, what they use as collateral is either the value of the leases that are also being used sometimes by these local government developing financing corporations, which are kind of like a public-private partnership, but we don't need to get too deep into that. So what they do is they go and hold up these buildings and the money that they have as collateral to get financing to build these buildings. So there has been a lot of worry about the Chinese property market for, I would say, about 15 years. And I wouldn't even, the worry that things were going to start to get scary. There was a couple different concerns. One, China desperately, because China's in this era of growth, they've got this growing middle class, this growing upper class in China. They have in many ways learned from the only larger economy, but they've learned from more developed economies about what not to do. And one of their big concerns was that this growing property development sector being so heavily leveraged, meaning they have a lot of debt, they're using a lot of debt in order to keep growing, was that we could see a collapse similar to what we saw in the United States housing market in the 2008 financial crisis. And there have been a lot of speculators that have said essentially, and financial, regulators that have said that Evergrande's collapse could be equivalent to a Lehman Brothers collapse. And there's been a couple reactions to this. This is not something that really caught the Chinese government by surprise. The central government and Xi Jinping have been trying to do things to curb the over leverage of these property developers. One of the big policies was the 3 red lines policy, which I'd have to check the year. What year was 3 red lines policy? What year? I feel like I know it. Okay, so it happened in August 2020. And essentially what the 3 red lines policy did was said these property developers, they cannot take out quite so much debt because it restricted all sorts of requirements as far as asset to debt ratio. how much short-term, like there was one of the policies was that there was a requirement that you have as much cash on hand as you have short-term debt. So theoretically, you'd be able to pay all of your short-term debt with cash on hand. Um, and one of the really important things to understand about this is that Xi Jinping said, as part of it, said houses are for living in, not for speculation. Well, why did this come up? Well, because most Chinese citizens, except for the really elite classes, do not have access to investing in foreign markets. Some of them can get there through Hong Kong, or if they like have someone who lives abroad for university or something like that. But generally, the average Chinese worker, even though they're incredibly good savers, like the average savings rate per capita in China is like 30%. I think it's up like around 32% right now. And so that's what percentage they're saving. It's actually one of the problems for China's economy, as because they are an export economy and they actually export, like they need to find places to export things because Chinese consumers don't buy as much as they produce, which is the opposite of like the American economy. We're an import economy. So anyway, I'm getting off track here. One of the big things is that there is all sorts of capital restrictions and capital flow restrictions in China. So Chinese citizens are not able to just like go buy a stock of a US company. They can really only invest domestically, and they don't have a lot of opportunities even to really invest in a lot of companies. And so one of the most accessible types of investment is property. And a lot of people were buying and selling property similar to how you would buy and sell, like Americans might buy and sell, stocks or mutual funds. They were viewing them as highly liquid. And one of the problems was that there was so much speculation going on and so much property buying that people were doing, back in maybe their hometowns as their migrant workers, because there's a lot of people in China that are migrant workers that only go back to their hometown like once a year for the spring festival, maybe again sometime in the fall if they're like rich enough to be able to go back twice. Um, and so there is a lot of people that are migrant workers and are investing in these properties that they're not actually living in back at their hometown. And the upper middle class was often buying multiple places as a form of investment. So one of the big problems that they were having was that there was just a ton of unfinished property. And the idea was always like, well, if you buy property, it's an investment, it's fairly liquid, it's a place to store your money, and it also, you could live in it if times get tough and something goes on with the market, right? Theoretically. Okay, and then there's this one other reason why people were buying houses. And I mentioned how many people are migrant workers. There is a almost apartheid-like system with the family registration system in China, where you have very different access to opportunities if you're rural versus urban. So your kids, you have better educational opportunities, you're more likely to get into university, as far as like the national placement exams and quotas. There's better infrastructure, healthcare, all sorts of things in the cities. And yeah, you might be able to make that argument that that's true in like the United States, for example. We have an urban rural divide, but what makes it really challenging in China that makes property more attractive is that there is a system of family registration that ties you to where the city your family registration is. And in the United States, I have freedom of movement as a United States citizen, and if I decide to move to Arizona, and start working in Arizona because it has better work opportunities for me, I can eventually get access to all the rights and privileges of a citizen of Arizona. This is also true in the European Union, although like to a slightly lesser extent than within the United States for people with United States citizenship and residency. In China, it can be extremely hard to access that residency in the city that you're in, even if you're there for decades. So your kids will stay back in your hometown because they can't access the schools that where you're a migrant worker at. And so all you're doing is sending money home, and the kids are living with their grandparents, maybe back in your family home. You don't have access as a migrant worker often to getting your registration in that city. Also, depending on where you're from in the rural area, you will be allocated like a plot of land by the government, and you'd have to give up that plot of land if you moved into the city. However, one of the ways that some cities will try to kind of fix this imbalance or get people to invest so that they can like increase their property tax base is they will say, hey, if you buy an 1 million won apartment, or if you, fulfill certain kinds of requirements that often involve buying property, then you're able to actually move your family registration into the city. And then your kids can come with you. They can access school. You can access the better healthcare, better pensions, all of that sort of things. And so one of the problems that they were having was that people were buying apartments and property partially because of this system of this unfair kind of system of family registration and how it affects opportunities, which they are like kind of changing a little bit, but okay, I see a lot of comments, so I'm going to check in on the comments because I want to make sure that I'm not confusing things. Please do a live report from Safeway at ADHD Queen, commenting on all the prices. I always seem to time my grocery trip during your live cast. Oh, okay, we are getting the live view. Frozen veggies, bacon, and chicken is on sale. All right. Price of salmon is up at ShopRite. Okay, I love this live thing. Canned goods were on sale at my store. This is riveting content here. We should have done this during Snackuary. Okay. Now let's see. We're into China. Okay. China can be entrepreneurial when it comes to these things we have problems with. Infrastructure, bureaucracy, they can cut through that quick. I wouldn't describe China as being good at cutting through bureaucracy quickly, but I would say that their system of not having their tax bases all being local as far as enforcement mechanism, local governments tend to be very motivated to do these sort of things, but I would not describe China as having low bureaucracy. But wait, Machka has a profile now? Machka is commenting.
What? Wait, it's Machka cool.
It's both cats, I guess.
Who is this?
Okay.
Wait, the photo looks like the orange cat.
Now we have questions. I really want a donut. I've been paying attention, but also, I swear, also a donut. I might do the donut earlier rather than later because this is very dense. My wife had to register me with her family in the little town office in Japan. They have that in Japan somewhat too, but not so severely. Yeah, Japan, Korea, and China, and Vietnam. A lot of Asian countries have family registration systems. I would say that it's fairly extreme in Korea and China. And I think it's kind of like one step down from extremeness in Japan. But yeah, I think it's really challenging if you have a foreign husband as far as like family registration, because it usually tends to be patrilineal. And so like commonly women would go under who they marry for the family registration system, but I know there's been a bunch of reforms to that, and I think that you fall into exception if you're a foreign husband. Um, why am I looking at Aaron? I just assumed that Machka's account was being run by Aaron. The kittens are being very, very cute. Uh, to get a better understanding of China, I recommend watching the China Show. There are two guys who have lived in China for like 10 years. Oh, that does sound interesting. The Where I get a lot of my China news is the Drum Tower, which is the Economist's coverage of China, but I am also particular to the economics of it. So I like how we're trying to get Machka Google to change the cat's photos without finding out what's going on. I want to say get off YouTube, Machka and Google, and go run your donut shop. Non-Chinese men can't buy property married to a Chinese woman or no. Yeah, there's some really interesting court cases going on right now as far as inheritance rights for single Chinese women. And this particularly relates to these land parcels in ancestral villages, and essentially women that remain unmarried or are widowed like are not able to get access to their ancestral villages payouts from these like land sale rights and all sorts of rezoning that happens with the local government. So sometimes like the local government will sell out and then everybody in the village will get like a portion of that. And there's some interesting lawsuits going through the Chinese government right now where women are saying, like, I should be allowed to keep my registration in my ancestral village and get the money that's kind of owed to me. But yes, there's a lot of very interesting things as far as family registration, which I am not that qualified to speak on. I'm not qualified at all to speak on. But what I can tell you is it is very much a factor in the property market. Okay. Do we have any questions about kind of what has been going on in the Chinese property market? I think the key things are, do you understand why people are buying property at such a high rate? Do you understand why people are upset? Essentially, buildings aren't getting finished to the point where we were seeing protests where people that had pre-purchased apartments and they hadn't been finished. Protests are extremely rare in China because of all sorts of reasons. And the fact that we were seeing protests, originally they were silent protests of people not paying their mortgages anymore on apartments that hadn't been finished. But then we actually saw in-person protests at Evergrande's headquarters of investors, people that had bought property that had not been finished. And that was really substantial. So I think we saw the first of those protests in 2021 after the Evergrande bankruptcy. And so this is why people are upset. They're still paying mortgages on buildings that have not been finished. There's a big effect on the building economies because a lot of these contractors are not getting paid by these companies. Country Garden, which is the largest property developer in China, has missed payments on a couple of their bond payments, which is debt that they've issued, right? So they missed some of their coupon payments, and so that's even more worrisome because they're an even bigger sector of the Chinese economy. And for a long time it was thought, well, there's no way that the government wouldn't bail them out, that the federal government wouldn't bail them out. There was a lot of tossing around the same phrase that we heard during the 2020 financial crisis, or the 2008 financial crisis of too big to fail. There was a lot of people that thought Evergrande was too big to fail. Um, so do we understand how properties get built? It's kind of like this weird house of cards with these um, local development. Okay, question here from Eric. Is Chinese central government trying to bail out any real estate developers? I felt like the economy was in big trouble widespread. Okay, so they really initially were not trying to bail out to bail out real estate developers. But one of the things that they've done is that they have created this white list where local governments are allowed to say, hey, this project. So say that like you've got this huge property developer like Country Garden, which is the largest one in China, and they have all over China like hundreds of projects going on at any time. And there's these huge towers, and these are the towers that we like kind of see like, oh my god, an entire city sprung up in like the course of 6 months. A lot of times these towers are like these big blocks that like a local government will say, hey, we've zoned this whole area. Property developers come out to auction. Do you want these leases? So, the, so I'm reading Machka in Google in the chat and it's distracting me. Similar to how they distract me in real life. Although currently they're being cute and tired. Okay, so one of the things that they did, because there is such a liquidity crisis right now in the property market where these buildings can't get finished, but they can't borrow anymore because of the three red lines policy. And there's just like a huge liquidity issue going on right now. They essentially the central government created this white list where they asked local governments to say, how is this project going? Is this tower actually being built right now? Or if it isn't being built right now, like, could it go ahead like immediately if more money came into this developer? So rather than just looking at the risk profile of the whole development company, local governments now can add properties to this whitelist, and then financiers can come in and like only lend to those specific projects. And those specific projects, it's not just shovel ready. It's like a lot of them are like paused projects that the only thing they need is cash, but they're relying on these local governments to be able to say like, no, this property actually could go forward, versus some of these projects are like too far gone. Apparently the quickly built ones are very badly made. I mean, I think that really, I think that's like true everywhere. But not all of these properties are poor quality, but generally a lot of these properties are relatively poor quality, which is very interesting because a lot of the land is leased by local governments, and they'll be on, it's similar to like the UK housing, well, the London, let's say the London housing market, where a lot of people that are buying flats in London are buying leasehold, which means that the land underneath is owned sometimes by the borough, sometimes by a corporation. And when you're buying a flat in a tower, you're not buying a piece of the land underneath. You are buying the lease for the land underneath the building, but that lease theoretically expires. But it's land underneath a tower, right? So the value of it theoretically must be tied to the land underneath. And like what other use are they going to have for it? Well, a lot of these local governments are selling 20 or 70-year leases to these property developers, which starts that kind of whole collateral chain that I was talking about. But there is so little belief that the leases would ever be terminated before the building is just either trash, that there is no price differential between a 20-year and a 70-year leasehold, as they would call it in the UK, property in China. Essentially, they're valued the same because there is so little consumer confidence that the tower will outlast the leases in this case. So leasehold, so crafty. It's like air rights in Manhattan. I know. Leasehold is, I can't wrap my head around that. I have not been banned. I verified my account now. I updated my photo. Oh, I see. I see. So it needs to get verified. Interesting. I wonder what Machka and Google are doing. Apparently I was buffering. Great. What was I talking about? Machka and Google are hungry for donuts. I don't know. I think they look very tired. I don't know how they're chatting right now. Am I gonna ban my kittens from chatting? I'm not planning on it, but we'll see if they make poor choices. Don't tell Google the kittens aren't 13 years old yet. Oh yeah, they're gonna be 13 in like June in cat years? I think that's right. Sorry if I missed it. What's a leasehold? Yeah, I may have mentioned it while I was buffering because I didn't realize I was buffering. So a leasehold is in London, where normally when you would buy normally in the United States and in North America generally, when you are buying a condo in a large building, your part of what you are buying is part of the property underneath that the building stands on. Now, in London, most people are buying a leasehold, not a freehold. A freehold is what I described, where you're buying the apartment and then you're buying a piece of the land underneath. Or you're buying a share in a corporation that comes with the apartment, and that corporation owns all of the land underneath, like an HOA. However, in London, it is much more common to get a leasehold flat, which means that you are buying a flat and then you are buying rights to the lease of the land underneath the building. And the land underneath the building would be owned by the borough, which is like the local government, the council, or it would be owned by, I don't know, for example, like, I don't know, Prince Charles. Like the duchy of whatever, or whoever the landholder is, or a corporation. And those leases would be very long. They'd be like, 50 years, 100 years, 99 years are quite common. But London's an old city. And the problem with that is that you're literally paying rent on that lease like the whole time that you're in there without ever actually owning the land underneath it. And theoretically the lease could expire, and like how are you going to like fix that? So that is what's happened with a lot of these newer Chinese property developments, because the leases that are kind of like underneath, the leases are leased by the city governments for whatever the local government is for whatever city in China to the development corporation, and the development corporation is kind of dependent on these leases being renewed. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't say Prince Charles, it's King Charles III. So yeah, although oof. So am I buffering a bunch? Interesting. It says that my connection is excellent. Is it sure? Is it you? Okay. Majka and Kugel ask, I'm very cute. I'm gonna be good. Does China have any land contracts? I don't know what land contracts mean, but like, so the land is owned by the local governments in China. And the local governments are often collectives, especially in the more rural areas that aren't super developed. They're collectives because it's a communist government, so it'll be like a collective of all the farmers that work that land. But there's all these downsides of there's all these downsides as far as being in those rural areas. Sure, you might have a piece of land in your name just because you're born in whatever village, but being born in whatever village means that you have much more limited opportunities. Apparently some people saw buffering, but it's gone now. Machka wants to invest some of her hard-earned donut wages in Chinese land contracts. Well, I will say that China would be very eager for Machka to do that right now. And the reason that China would be very eager for you to do that is because they are desperately seeking foreign investors right now. And one of the reasons they're desperately seeking foreign investors is because the local development corporations that these cities operate that kind of sell the land, the demand has plummeted for the land. It used to be that they would put up for auction these parcels that are zoned for residential development, and there would be eager takers because property developers were always looking for new places to build land, and they could use this collateral as part of this kind of house of cards that I described for financing. Because of the 3 red lines policy and because of all the friction going on right now between Evergrande and Country Garden having missing debt payments, and now Evergrande being ordered to wind up, the kind of problem is that the property market has cooled. A lot of these developers can't take out any more debt. They're not allowed to. And so there's just less demand. Also, real estate buyers, like the Chinese buyers who have always been so eager to buy any property whatsoever, and partially because it's the only thing they can invest in, they're really like, with China's recession, with their youth unemployment rate, and then with all of the friction right now where people's things are not actually getting built, a lot of people are just like, I'm not interested in buying houses right now. So now a lot of these local governments are putting stuff up for auction and they're not even getting bids, whereas it used to be very, very competitive for any place to build. And because of that, they are now getting downgraded. A lot of these corporations that might have foreign investors, usually via Hong Kong, which is less so now, but under the one country, two government system that they have a common law court, and they also have more open financial markets in Hong Kong. And so Hong Kong is one of the ways that a lot of people will access the mainland China markets. All of this to say, a lot of foreign investors have completely cooled because these local governments have been downgraded. These property developers have been downgraded as they're missing debt. Their bonds are not attractive anymore when they're actually missing payments. There's really no good relief sought. Like, nobody has a super great solution outside of a central government bailout, which is not really something China can truly afford to do. It isn't that China doesn't have money in the central government. The structure and the way that China's financing works, it's very unlikely the central government would be able to shoulder 22% of their economy from tanking, right? So this sounds like a downward spiral, slow with no bottom. I mean, I think there is a bottom, but the thing about it is that, like, everyone has been predicting this coming for ages. People have genuinely said, people in the Chinese government, people that bet on China, Chinese consumers, people have said this is coming, that we need to do something about it. But nobody really came up with really excellent solutions. Land contracts are seller financing when a borrower does not qualify for a mortgage. No, I mean, that wouldn't really happen. Just because of the way the Chinese property market works, you wouldn't really do that. So yeah, I don't think so. Looks like we have a donut shop Super chat. Get to work, Machka and Kugel. Order up, Eric. Thank you. You got a tax break toffee twist. Thank you for the super chat. Even if the kittens are not very good at actually working at their donut shop. What if I just brought them to the donut shop? Oh, now the order up is going to stay up for a really long time. I complained it wasn't up there long enough, and now it's going to stay up there forever. I think your cats might actually have financial acuity. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. They seem like they're having a lot of naps. Should we eat a donut? I think we've been at it for 45 minutes, so I think it's time to eat a donut. If you didn't know, this is Talking Dough and Eating Donuts. So we talk about economics, which we have been doing, and we also eat a donut. Okay, so here's the donut. It was prettier, but it is a pistachio bombolini, which is like an Italian style of donut. So it's covered in this like sugar crust and then a pistachio cream made with real pistachios. So there we go. Let's see how this tastes. I think this is going to be hard to eat on camera. It's like totally filled on the inside. Okay. I'm getting a little bit of the pistachio taste, but it's not very strong yet. Should I lick the cream off the top? I like the crunchiness that the sugar on the outside gives to it. Cheryl asked if the donut is in the log. Yes, I started writing it in, but we're going to have to fill in the rating in the log after this. Where did the log go? Did the cat move the log? There's the donut log. Okay, so the donut log, I've been taking pictures of them, but I will say this one was a little sad. So I already filled it in because I kind of determined it's not that interesting to watch me fill it on camera, but we'll have to do the rating. Okay. There's so much cream on it. I'm licking my lips, trying to say lick your lips. I know. This is a very messy donut. The pistachio flavor is not as exciting as I wanted it to be. But the actual dough is really excellent. This is a 2-towel donut. If your cats start giving you financial advice, worry. Well, I mean, I have an entire book based on cat financial advice, so. Okay. This is pretty good. It was really good. I might be a little hungry. So, I do have suspicions that my rating would not be quite as high if I have to just get all the cream off of it. Some of the cream went into my hair. So, okay. Let's do this donut rating. I think I'm going to give it 3.5. So 3.5 out of 5. It was good, but it wasn't amazing. Next week, we're not going to have a donut, by the way. We are going to have a beignet for Fat Tuesday. But that's just not because I celebrate Fat Tuesday, but because that's what the donut shop is selling that day. If your cat starts speaking or writing, how would you react? I'd be like, let's monetize that shit. If the cat started speaking and writing, I would immediately start a TikTok account devoted to them. Apparently, I can't start a YouTube channel for them because they already have one. ADHD Queen says, so I've finally been able to read it. Oh, yay! ADHD Queen says, your book is available through Amazon Kindle Unlimited. Oh, that's good to know. I couldn't remember if I've turned that on and off a few times. I couldn't remember if I put it under unlimited. I think I did. Yeah, I'm kind of excited about the beignet, but I don't know if I'm going to be motivated enough to make a special intro for what would it be? Talking. What is a bee thing? Eating beignets and talking balance sheets. That would actually be appropriate for today, huh? It would be like the frog in the cartoon. Oh, yeah. Oh, let's not forget the taxman. The taxman didn't make any noises, so I guess there's no taxes being taken. It's gone now, so. Talking billions, talking banks, talking beads. I wouldn't have anything to say about beads, so. I could invite my friend on that reads, runs a bead shop, though. Oh, yeah, there's going to be beignets at a volunteer night this weekend, so I'm going to have beignets twice. That's pretty good. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the Chinese property market, or we just want to watch the cat some more? We have to get the cat cam turned back on, if so, but they're being very cute. Machka's being a tiny loaf right now. So I guess the final bit that I offered in promo was like, why should you care? It's kind of like how you shouldn't care that Lehman Brothers collapsed, but you should care that that when banks are not doing well, then the rest of us suffer. That's roughly what you need to worry about. China is the second largest economy in the world. It going through an economic slowdown, and all of this equals really some real risks to the world markets. Tax-free Tuesday on Oh My Dollar. That's true. Although I will note, as I am about to teach a tax workshop to first-time filers next week, just because no one tells you you owe taxes doesn't mean you don't owe them. So this is just some freelance math. I'm gonna pay my estimated payments later for a bigger bite. Actually, I think what happened is because we've been having 2 donuts a week for the past couple months, I overpaid my estimated payments, and so now there's no taxes due. It seems like these are the same issues that China's housing market had last year or so. Am I wrong? Is it just news because it's not improving? No, that's an excellent question. This has been the same problems it's been having since 2020, 2019. So it's not anything new. And people predicted it for years ahead of that. Oh, okay, we're done. Oh, we're moving the kit to a different kitten cam. But the reason it's back in the news is because Evergrande, the second largest developer that the second largest developer and the most indebted property developer in the world, it essentially went through restructuring of its debts. Kind of, it would be equivalent to Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the US in 2021, but they've been trying all sorts of things. Like China's government even asked the CEO and founder of Evergrande to put up 2 billion of his own dollars. And they've been trying everything as far as restructuring. They have made no progress in the past 2 years and change. And the reason it's back in the news is that on January 29th, Evergrande was ordered by a Hong Kong court to just wind it up. Essentially, enough is enough. You haven't figured it out yet, so you've got to figure out how to just bring it down. And so yeah, that's essentially the problem. David asked, why is Tuesday fat? It's a good question. It is also known as Mardi Gras, I believe, and it's for Catholics and other Orthodox Christians. It is and like Anglicans, it is the day before Lent starts. So Lent is 40 days of like, usually like people give stuff up for Lent. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of the equivalent of Yom Kippur. Like some people will like give up certain foods, do more fasting. It's like a reflective and pious period. And then but the reason it's called Fat Tuesday is because it's like the last day to party. And then Mardi Gras is just French for Fat Tuesday. It just means Fat Tuesday in French. But it's like really big in New Orleans where there's like a pretty heavy Catholic population. And obviously a lot of people that speak Creole. And so Mardi Gras is also in Creole. Anyway, that's the basics of what I know. I am not a Catholic. I just grew up around a lot of them. But beignets are a common thing to eat, particularly in New Orleans on Mardi Gras. And so they tend to be very themed. Oh, yeah. So it's Ash Wednesday, the day after. So that's like the day that kicks off Lent. And so if you see Catholics with ash on their forehead, it's usually Catholics. I would say that there's quite a few other religions that do it, but they don't all follow the same calendar because they all have like a bunch of debates about which calendar is the right calendar. So in the US, usually when people are talking about Fat Tuesday, they're all talking about the Catholic, and I believe also the Anglicans follow the same calendar. But most of the Eastern Orthodox religions do not follow the same calendar. And because they calculated the days different, something like that. And because of that, they don't usually have Ash Wednesday on the same day. New Orleans is heavy with people who like to party. Yes, but it also has a lot of Catholics. It's the last day to party and throw beads. Lent, yes, that is how you spell Lent. I love Lent. I don't celebrate it, but so many restaurants add seasonal fish items to the menu. That's a very interesting. I've always been told that visiting Ethiopia during the Orthodox Lent is a really good idea as a vegan. So like Ethiopian cuisine tends to be pretty vegetarian, but it's even more vegan friendly if you visit during the Orthodox fasts, which is like Lent, essentially. It has a different name though. But I've always been told I should visit Ethiopia during the fasting holidays because almost everything will be vegan because they will like cut the little bit of dairy that they would and then the meats for the few ones. I have a bunch of Knights of Columbus coworkers. I don't know what Knights of Columbus is. Is it a type of... Oh, it's a Catholic fraternal organization. I've definitely heard that name before. I don't think I ever had any idea. Is it affiliated with Columbus, like the dude who sailed the ocean blue? ADHD Queen is here to give us all of the Catholic knowledge. Grew up Catholic and went to a Catholic school. I'm a heathen now. Yep, that's why you will see filet of fish on special. So I have a question. Is the Super Bowl, do we know, is the Super Bowl timed to happen before Lent? Because the Super Bowl is this weekend, which I only know because one of my coworkers did this great piece on sports betting in Oregon that I got to work on because of this. And I just realized that we didn't put the lights on in the background that entire stream. Good job, me. Anyway, one of my coworkers did a thing on sports betting that we're going to have air on Super Bowl Sunday, which is this Sunday. I have a question. Does anybody know if the Super Bowl, as a very food-themed holiday, is it tied to always be right before Lent? Because I could, like, absolutely see that in... yes, I can see that. Also, anybody that's grew up non-Catholic, Protestant, Christian in America, particularly evangelical, can you answer my question? Do Protestant evangelicals, do they celebrate Lent? Or is it only a Catholic and Orthodox thing? Machka is trying to get the last bits of dry food out of her food puzzle. That's what the noise is back there. My mom said she sheltered you because I don't know what Knights of Columbus is. I mean, I don't think that for a religion I don't celebrate, I should know. I should know about their fraternal organizations. Knights of the Columbus is the discount place to have a reception or a family gathering. Oh, this is good to know. I bet we probably don't have a Knights of Columbus here in Portland. Because there's just not a very high Catholic population here. Oh, they are now known for pancake breakfast. Okay, yes, this is coming back to me now. David says, you may recall I didn't do well at that Ethiopian restaurant. That's confusing to me because usually if you eat vegan, you'd be fine. But do you have other food restrictions or you're just kosher? When I was a kid, I was at a hotel where the Knights were having their annual convention and nearly got a bunch of adults rioting when I mentioned some people think he might have been Jewish. Really? I guess he would be Sephardic. That's very interesting to me. I am not that familiar with it, so. Super Bowl, like the presidential inauguration, has moved around dates over the year a bit. Is it? But I have a question. Is it always before Lent? Because I could see the NFL putting together their like team, like their calendar and being like, oh, we can't have Super Bowl Sunday in the middle of Lent. Okay. ADHD Queen said, some do. I know a Methodist who did. I don't know if that was just their church. Those slipper booties look comfy. We have a cathedral, right? But would Knights, is there a Knights of Columbus there? I'm so curious. Okay. ADHD Queen says that we do have a Knights of Columbus here, though. I'm surprised because we just have so much fewer Catholics. I, at one point, technically was employed by the Archdiocese of Portland because I was a Catholic worker, which is not affiliated with the Catholic Church, but the Catholic worker organization that I worked for ran all of their like background checks and everything through the Archdiocese of Portland, which fair. Columbus left on his famous voyage the day they expelled Jews from Spain. There was speculation, but most people think he was not. But Columbus had a large number of Jewish crew, so sympathizer. That's really interesting. I find that very interesting. There is even a chapter in Aloha. Oh my gosh, I had no idea. That's very interesting. I love it when I find out things about a place that I've lived for almost 20 years now. Also, I guess I would have no reason to know about the Knights of Columbus in Portland, but my grandfather was a guard for Pope John Paul when he came to Chicago in the 80s. Oh, that's really interesting. Kwak Comedy says, I'm a Baptist, and through my church, we do acknowledge the Lenten season. I usually do the fast in the 40 days leading up to Easter. I'm assuming you don't do a full fast for 40 days, because that sounds dangerous. Is it just the, like, Catholic Church style? And is that common among Baptists? Now this is just turning into religion class with Lily. But with a poorly researched religion class where we only source it from the people that are attending my live streams. I have a cat on my lap again. I don't know if you can see at the top of the screen this little bug, but it's really cute. Her little tail is hanging down. His interpreter, Luis Torres, was a converso, for example. This is all very fascinating. So is there some speculation that Columbus might be a converso as well? I love this. This is very interesting facts. This is my little kitten. What are we doing? Where are we going? Why is this the best choice? Okay, I'll just hold up your neck. My cousin used to hang out with Pope John Paul. He was the chairman of the Rome Jewish Committee for a while. Oh, Rome Jewish Community, not committee. I'm distracted by the cats. It seems like the date is always before Lent, but it keeps creeping back into February, meaning later in the year or earlier in the year. What's a converso? I love this learning. So converso were Jews that were forced to convert in mainly modern day Spain by the Holy Roman Empire and the Spanish government. And so there's a lot of conversos now. A lot of people descended from conversos in Latin American countries as well. So there's like a lot of conversos in modern day Mexico as well, but obviously Spain. And those would be predominantly Sephardic Jews generally. I mean, there are conversos in other places, but majority of conversos were during what is happening? So they were forced to convert in order, or the alternative was to be killed generally during the Inquisition. Yeah. I have a kitten on my shoulder now. Don't show your butt to the camera. I would give something up. Meat, chocolate, more like a Daniel fast type thing. Interesting. Okay, so it's like your choose at your own direction. I think that's the more common, like, Protestant kind of method. I think a lot of Catholics do that too, where they'll just give up some random thing. I'm trying to wonder if there's like a guest I can invite for this, because I think it would be interesting to talk about the economics behind fish and Lent and the Catholic Church, because it was predominantly an economic prospect. But I feel like I could probably get someone that could speak to it better than me. But that might be an interesting topical live stream during Lent. Thus the speculation, because he had a lot of Jewish influences. He might have been one of them, but no hard evidence. I don't know. Does anybody really want Christopher Columbus? Feels like maybe he shouldn't work. Jews should not work to bring him into the fold. I'd love to have fish economics. Well, of course you would. Okay. My grandma would be proud. Okay, well, this has been really fascinating. I didn't know that this would turn into a religion lecture, and Lily learns about the distinction between the different types. I do appreciate that Eric is out here doing the research on the Super Bowl. What should next week's topic be? So please let me know down in the chat. What do you want to talk about next week? And 2, what are you looking forward to this week? Is anybody watching the Super Bowl? Is that a thing? Are people going to tune in only for the commercials? Do people watch the football? Are people only going to tune in to see Taylor Swift? I have been kind of appreciating the back and forth that I've been seeing between people that have only started watching NFL because of Taylor Swift, and then people upset every time they show Taylor Swift on NFL. Which I will also say they show her like 30 seconds out of a 4-hour game, and then it really gets some people very mad. Earliest Super Bowl, number 1 was January 15th, 67th, and latest statewide was number 56 on February 13th, 2022. Interesting. Okay. So it's sliding later into the year. I think that's good given how cold it's been at so many of, because I feel like if you move it later into the winter, into the spring, you're less likely to end up with like people playing in negative 10 conditions or whatever. Oh my God. David's gonna come up with all the puns for our fish ones. Prophet pollux, salmon stocks. I have been doing a lot of learning and listening about salmon because I'm on the editing crew for the Salmon Wars. So yeah, it's been really fascinating. The podcast that's coming out all about the history of salmon fights between tribes and government in Oregon. It's very fascinating. It'll be coming out later this year. Earlier today, I was trying to explain how kosher airline food works to a bunch of Romanian programmers. I mean, that sounds like an episode of this live stream. That sounds interesting and challenging. David said there's a Super Bowl. No, not watching a sports ball. Okay, nobody's watching the Super Bowl. My hubs and son are going to a party. I get the house to myself for the Super Bowl or just generally. But yay, house to yourself. Very exciting. I think everybody likes it. Kugel is considering coming over here. Machka's just using me as a piece of infrastructure. I have play rehearsal. Looking forward to getting off book. Ooh, that's exciting. What's the play? Or can you tell us? Can you tell us yet? That's exciting though. My partner is from Northern California, so he's mildly interested in the game and very interested in the food. So we bought snacks and pre-ordered our pizza today. I didn't know that you could pre-order pizza for, I guess, like, is delivery pizza? Damn, interesting. I just took the zip tie away from the cat, and then proving why the cat shouldn't have it, I just locked it to my finger and I can't get it off now. So that's my adult task. I'm gonna have to cut the zip tie probably off my hand now. I tend to enjoy an event. Yeah, it's fair. It is kind of an excuse to get people together, and then all you really have to do is prepare food, and there's not very much else you have to do. Um I spent last weekend dusting my bedroom and upgrading my bedroom air purifier. I think this weekend will be part 2. What is the part 2? Is it just going to be more cleaning? Have I ever visited a salmon ladder? Yeah, absolutely. I live in Oregon. It's hard to not visit a salmon ladder in Oregon. But yeah. It may have been the only person who could instantly pull up pictures of my kosher airline foods of the past to demonstrate. Yeah, I take pictures of all of my airplane meals to show off how bad/good different vegan airplane meals can be. So, go get off that zip tie. I mean, it's fine. It's not like cutting off my circulation. It's Barbecue by Robert O'Hara. My last play was Raisin in the Sun pre-pandemic. This is a lot different. It has an R rating. Yeah, I've never heard of Barbecue by Robert O'Hara. Well, that's exciting. I'm excited that you're going to get off book. Okay, Dave is going to clean the rest of the bedroom this weekend, everybody. Really looking forward to that. In some locales, the big game is almost a holiday. That is true. It really is. How many field trips to Bonneville Dam did you go to, Lillian? Well, I didn't grow up around here, so I didn't go on any field trips in school to Bonneville Dam, but I actually interned at the Bonneville Power Administration, which is the federal agency here that is responsible for putting up a bunch of the salmon ladders and building a lot of the dams. So I had a whole plan where I was gonna like work for that, intern that federal agency, then get a federal job, and then be able to move into the Department of Transportation. This was like my master plan. But then they put a hiring pause on. So yeah, that didn't work out. I'm not vegan, and I had a box vegan air and Iceland air, and that sure was some mediocre falafel on that salad. I mean, but that still sounds... Iceland air I haven't had terrible experiences with. British Airways is appalling. Who else is like good or bad? I had the vegan first class meal service on Korean Air, and they really tried. And it was like 8 courses, but it was just a bunch of blocks of tofu seasoned as though they were fish. Because that's like the basis of Korean cuisine. Interesting play on race, addiction, and fame. That sounds really interesting. Okay. I think this is all. Nobody has any suggestions. The only suggestion I saw for what we should cover next week is planners. Anybody else? Hello. This is the more considered kitty, and she plans out what she's doing more than just goes based on impulse like the other kitty. Because of Brexit, the European kosher meals aren't coming from London anymore, but from Antwerp. Oh, interesting. It took me a day to dust off my transit roll sign collection. I mean, that sounds great. I have yet to get a decent airline meal. Maybe I can give it up for Lent. I've had some okay ones, but my standards are pretty low. The main thing is that, like, I hate it when you're coming back internationally and you, like, can't bring food in because of import. Can't bring food on the plane or out, but then there's really awful options, and it's like an 8 to 16 hour flight. That's when I'm really not liking it. All right, we're saying planner. I do need to go get the zip tie off my fingers. So, and Kugel's investigating the mic. Can you all hear that? Wonder why my mic keeps getting moved, Miss Kugel. Okay. Oh, nice. B says, I did book that round trip flight to Japan immediately after the stream 2 weeks ago. 13-hour flight. Woo! That's very exciting. Also, I find it very funny that you I find it very funny that we are meant to be a money channel and we just encourage people to spend money, but that's very exciting. I'd watch a planner stream in the replay. Okay, I mean, it's really sounding like that's what's gonna have to happen. All right. I'm very excited for you. Let me know if you need any suggestions of things to do. I think there's also some other people in here that have suggestions for Japan as well. All right. Thank you. We are enablers. We're all enablers. Okay. Thank you all for coming to the stream. I hope you enjoy your Super Bowl being at home by yourself, your parties, your pre-ordered pizza, your cleaning out your transit signs. David, you have the most thrilling weekend. You're prepping for your plays. It was a delight to have you all here. We're probably going to do a planner stream next week because it sounds like the Chinese property market was too much and everybody just wants me to go back to planners. Regardless, stay safe, stay hydrated, pet a cat if you have one.